أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون، وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. ومن آياته أن خلقكم من تراب ثم إذا أنتم بشر تنتشرون. ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة، إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم، إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. ومن آياته منامكم بالليل والنهار وابتغاؤكم من فضله، إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يسمعون. ومن آياته يريكم البرق خوفا وطمعا، وينزل من السماء ماء فيحيي به الأرض بعد موتها، إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون. ومن آياته أن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره، ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون. وله من في السماوات والأرض كل له قانتون، وهو الذي يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده وهو أهون عليه، وله المثل الأعلى في السماوات والأرض، وهو العزيز الحكيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولي الصالحين، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الداعي إلى صراط مستقيم، صلى الله وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على نهجه واقتفى آثاره ليوم الدين. أما بعد. After praising Allah Jalla fi Ulah and sending salutations upon our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam will proceed. Alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah that Allah Azza wa Jalla has gathered us here this evening. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to make this a blessed gathering. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to make us from those who are forgiven in this gathering. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us from those who hear this speech and follow the best of it. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla, just like He gathered us all here this evening, that He gathers us all in Jannah Firdaus A'la. Ameen. Dua is free, wallahi. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to aid our brothers and sisters who are suffering all over the world. I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to aid our brothers and sisters in Palestine. I ask Allah to grant them victory and to deal with those who are oppressing them. إنه لذلك القادر عليه. أيها الإخوة والأخوات, I'm extremely glad to be here this evening with you in this city of Malmö. It's my first visit to this city, and hopefully it won't be the last. And I've heard many good things about this city, especially the Muslim community here. And I wasn't actually meant to come here. It was very last minute. I came to Sweden last week, and I was in Stockholm, I was in Gothenburg, I was in a number of cities. And then I went to Norway. And there was no time for Malmö in the schedule. So what we had to do is that I had to go to Norway, then come back to Sweden in order to come to Malmö, because I said I can't let my brothers and sisters in Malmö down. And it seems like the other thing that pushed me to come back, it seems like the community here is very excited about getting married. Therefore, I thought, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to go to Malmö for the first time, and hopefully, by the end of the lecture, I managed to get people married. So are you guys ready for that, inshallah, by the end of the lecture? Who's ready to get married now? Raise your hand. Huh? Only 2 hands. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The sisters, I'm sure they are shy, but there's many sisters who are ready to get married. We're going to matchmake today, inshallah ta'ala. We have witnesses. We have, inshallah, we'll call the guardians, the wedding. We'll ask for permission, and we'll do the aqd right now, inshallah. Ayyuha al-ikhwat wal akhawat. Marriage. This is a great act of worship that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has legislated for us. This act of worship, marriage, it's something that's extremely beloved to Allah. Allah loves it. Because there's so many benefits that come out of marriage. And that's why it's important before one gets married, they understand the objectives and the goals of marriage. Why are you getting married? It's important to understand that first. Some people, they get married because everyone else is getting married. Some people get married because social pressure pressures them to get married. Some people get married because it just seems cool. Or they saw it on a movie and they thought, you know what, I want to live that. But when you understand the actual goals of marriage and what you're trying to achieve when you get married, it makes your marriage more meaningful. There are a number of objectives of marriage. Now, before I tell you what they are, I want to see how many you know. What are the goal objectives of marriage? Who can tell me? Why do you get married? Why do you want to get married? Huh? 2? To complete half your deen. Jameel, anything else? That's the one that everyone's memorized. Something else? Yes, at the back. To have children, excellent. What else? To protect yourself from the haram, excellent. What else? Anything from the sisters? Nothing. Khair. Hayye. Naam, the Prophet ﷺ said, marry the woman who is affectionate and has a lot of children, so because I'm going to show off with my number, the number of the ummah on the day of judgment. Excellent, to have children, a lot of children. Jameel, anything else? Or is that it? You mentioned some of the objectives of marriage. The first objective of marriage is a religious one, it's a spiritual one. It is so that your deen becomes stronger, that you become stronger in your faith. You are one who has support on your journey to Allah Azza wa Jal. You have someone who is sharing that journey with you, who complements you on that journey. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that when you get married, you're completing half of your religion, that other half. But you know, in order for someone to complete that half of the other half of the religion, they must first work on completing the first half. That's what you need to do before you get married. That before you get married, you're working on yourself. You're trying to get closer to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You're establishing a strong relationship with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You are one who is devout to Allah Jalla fi'ula. That is what's required from one who is getting married, so that when you get married, you have someone else who is going to bring that other half of that devoutness to Allah Azza wa Jal, to help you on your journey to Allah Jalla fi'ula. What does it mean to be one who completes that first half? It means, in simple terms, I'll make it as simple as possible. It means that you are one who fulfills your obligations to Allah. That which Allah obliged upon you, you do it. But if you are one who neglects that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has obliged upon you, then you haven't worked on that first half of your religion that you are required to try to perfect. If you are one who is not praying your 5 daily prayers, something is wrong with the religiosity that you need to fix. If you're one who's not dutiful to their parents, and perhaps is harmful to their parents, you need to be one who's dutiful to them, because you need to work on your relationship with your parents. If you're one who does not fulfill the other obligations, you don't fast Ramadan, you don't give the charity that's obligatory, you are not one who goes out your way to do the things that Allah Azza wa Jal has made a requirement for you to be a Muslim, then that's what you need to work on. You need to fix that. You guys, I heard in Sweden they like the word fix. The funny story behind it is that before I came to Sweden, there were brothers who were arranging. The English word is arrangement, arranging, right? They were arranging their schedule. So what happened was, they kept telling me, you know, if you want to have this in Stockholm, or you want to do this in Gothenburg, we can fix it. That's what they kept saying to me. So I didn't understand, what do they mean we can fix it? What's broken? So I said to them, everything's fine, there's nothing that needs to be fixed. They said to him, no, if you really want to do this lecture here, we can fix that as well. I said, fix, do they mean arrange? Turns out you guys say fix in your language, huh? And you translate it directly. You guys need to fix that. So what you need to do is you need to fix the first half of your deen. Once you fix it, it will make you someone who's prepared to go into that marriage. Why? Because look at this. The Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about the criteria that you should look out for when it comes to getting married, when you're looking for a spouse, a husband, or a man is looking for a wife, the criteria that he pointed out each time is that look at that religiosity. For both, the deen. That deen is that they fulfill their obligations to Allah. If they do more, that's even better. Right? But there are people who fulfill their obligation to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, they are a match. That's what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. Rather, he says to us ﷺ, that is the most important criteria. Everything else does not matter. If that is not intact, if they have all the other criteria, it's not a match for you. He said ﷺ about the man, إِذَا أَتَاكُم مَّن تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. If a man proposes to your daughter and you're pleased with his character and his religiosity, then marry him off to your daughter. If his character and religiosity, his deen are intact. But notice something here. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the religion, the deen, but then on top of that he mentioned the character. Character is part of deen, but he mentioned it by itself to show that it has importance. Because a man's character is one of the most important things in a marriage. Some people, they are religious in terms of doing the obligations that Allah has obliged upon them in terms of their ibadah, but they are zero when it comes to character. He may beat you to the first row in every salah, he might be in the masjid at all times, but his tongue is loose, he utters whatever he wants. He behaves with the people however he wants. He is harsh, he oppresses the people, he backbites the people, he is one who is extremely aggressive, and so on. These are things that one needs to work on. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah tabarak wa ta'ala, this is to the men. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, this is a general statement, but even more important for a man. He says, if an individual surpasses you and is higher in you than you in good character, he has surpassed you in deen. He has more deen than you. If someone has more good character than you, he has more deen than you. That's a general statement for everyone. But it's even more important for the man. You know why I say it's even more important for the man? Because the man, he's the one, most of the time, who either makes a marriage or breaks it. It's within the man's sphere. Because there are going to be times in a marriage where things are going to be extremely difficult. There are going to be times in a marriage where things are going to get tough. There are going to be times in a marriage where there are going to be extreme disagreements with your spouse. When these matters occur, the man does not have the right to be emotional at times like this. He doesn't have that right. Because if you were to be emotional, that's what can lead the marriage to breaking down. For instance, your wife is upset. She is shouting, she is screaming, she perhaps is even breaking the cups and the plates and everything. Right? How do you react? You're meant to be calm in a situation like that. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to shout back. You wait for the situation to calm down and then you deal with it. That's part of having good character and being one who's wise. The Prophet ﷺ was like that. Our Messenger ﷺ, because he's the best example for all of us. He ﷺ, did he have difficult times in his marriages? Yes, he did. How did he deal with it? He dealt with it in the following manner. Imagine, look at this. One day, the Prophet ﷺ, he's in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. And then, he was going to have some guests that are coming to his home. So, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to compete. They were jealous of each other, so they used to compete. So one of the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ, she sent her servant with a dish of food to take to the house of Aisha to be given to the guests. The food is brought to the house. Now, Aisha radiallahu anha, when she sees it, she gets offended. And she has every right to get offended. Because this other wife is making it seem like that Aisha cannot cater for the guests. That she cannot host them. So what does Aisha radiallahu anha do? She grabs the dish and she smashes it in front of the Prophet ﷺ. Imagine, Amam al-Rasul, in front of the Prophet ﷺ, she smashes it. Some of the narration, it says that the guests were there with the Prophet ﷺ and she smashed the place in front of the guests and the Prophet ﷺ. Imagine now, I want you to imagine the house of the Prophet ﷺ. It's very small, it's a hujra, very small. The guests and where Aisha are and where the Prophet ﷺ is all within the same area. It's very tiny. She's not in a separate room when she's doing this. They're in the same area, she smashed it. How would you react if that happened to you? Perhaps some of us, if that happened to them and their wife smashed the plates in front of them, they'll tell all the guests, Yalla, everyone out. I will deal with this right now, right? And perhaps the situation will escalate. And they will let their emotions drive them. But look at the best of creation, Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. His first reaction was that he smiled. He smiled. The Sahaba are shocked. Some of them are thinking, what just happened? What on earth is going on? What have we walked into? And the Prophet ﷺ, he knows they're confused, so he says to them, غَارَتْ أُمُّكُمْ, your mother became jealous. And then he helps clean up the plates, as if nothing happened. That takes a lot of self-restraint. That is true strength. A man who can do that is a strong man. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالسُّرْعَةِ, that the strong man is not the one who's able to wrestle people and beat them physically. That's not a strong man. He said, إِنَّمَا الشَّدِيدُ مَنْ يَمْلِكُ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. The true strong one is the one who's able to control himself when he's angry. If you lose control of yourself when you're angry, you're a weak man. You let shaitan get the best of you. You're not able to combat him. You don't have the strength to do so. But a man who's able to have that self-restraint and he refrains from being extremely emotional and even losing his mind because of how emotional he becomes, that's a strong man. Now the question that every single one of us, especially the men, the brothers who are here, needs to ask himself is that, how much of that do I possess? If I don't possess that, I need to now work on that, especially if you're not married before I get into a marriage. That you learn to be forbearing, you learn to be patient. The Prophet ﷺ, he told us, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. He said that knowledge, it's learnt. And just like that, forbearance, learning to be patient is something that you can learn, you teach yourself to have. Some of the previous righteous people, amongst them are those who were extremely forbearing, to the extent that if the worst thing was done to them, they would not lose themselves. There was a man known as Al-Ahnaf ibn Qais. Al-Ahnaf ibn Qais was a tabi'i, the generation after the Sahaba. He was known for his extreme hilm, forbearance. It is said that some of the people, they heard the reputation that Ahnaf had, that he was extremely forbearing. So they wanted to test his forbearance. So they sent a man, a foolish man, and this foolish man, they gave him his money. They said to him, we want you to go to Ahnaf ibn Qais, who's the leader of his tribe, whilst he's sitting with his people, his men, who all respect him. We want you to go to him and sit with him and smack him in the face. They gave him money to do that, to see his reaction. Right? So, Al-Ahnaf, he was sitting there and all his men are around him, and these are men that respect him, right? Especially when there's others there and you get hit by someone, you feel obliged to retaliate because you're going to look weak if you don't retaliate, right? So they caught him in a difficult time. So look, the man comes to Ahnaf and he sits with Ahnaf and he says to him, are you the extremely forbearing man? Ahnaf, he knows that there's a certain man who's plotting against him, who's trying to harm him. So he says to him, I'm forbearing, but that man over there, he's even more forbearing than me. I think that's the one you're looking for. That's the man who sent him. So the man was sitting in the corner and he was praying. So what happened? This man, this foolish man, he said, this is the man I'm looking for. He went behind him, smacked him across the head. Ahnaf smiled and he said that was a smack that was for me, but because of my forbearance, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala diverted it from me. Right? Allah Azza wa Jal, when He sees good character in you, and when He sees that you're a person who has good character for Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal will make things easier for you. Because good character is an act of worship. It's ibadah. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that أَكْثَرُ مَا يُدْخِلُ نَاسَ الْجَنَّةِ تَقْوَى اللَّهِ وَحُسْنُ الْخُلُقِ. The most two matters that admit the people into paradise, it is God consciousness, taqwa, and good character. It's an act of worship. The more you have it, the more Allah Azza wa Jalla will be pleased with you, and Allah Azza wa Jalla will aid you and assist you in your affairs. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ told us, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَيَبْلُغُ بِحُسْنِ خُلُقِهِ دَرَجَةَ الصَّائِمِ الْقَائِمِ. That an individual will attain with his good character the status and the rank of the one who fasts a lot of voluntary fasts and the one who prays a lot of voluntary prayers. You can get the same rank as that individual because of your good character. It shows the value of it in the sight of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So that's something that we need to work on, we need to develop. That will make you more prepared for a marriage. That's the first thing. Secondly, ayyuha al-kiram, it is also essential that when you are, because the title of this lecture is how do you find the one, right? Is that correct? That's correct. So that's the most question that I get when it comes to marriage questions. How do I find someone? What do I do to find someone? And the answer that I give them is, I don't know. End of lecture. Sah? Because there's not one answer to this. There's numerous answers that can be given. But I'm going to give you a breakdown. Hopefully, it will make it easier for us, inshaAllah ta'ala. How do I find the person that I'm looking forward to get married to? The first step that you need to take when it comes to getting married and finding someone who's suitable for you is that you look in the place that you're going to find everything. and that's with Allah. The first step that you take, which is the practical step that most people overlook, sometimes they don't do at all, is that you raise your hands to Allah Jalla fi ula, and you sincerely ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant you a righteous spouse, someone who's good for you. You raise your hands and sincerely ask Allah Azza wa Jalla. You know why? Because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala promises to give you a response to whatever you ask for. That's a promise from Allah Azza wa Jalla. So it does not make sense for me to not to ask. Before I ask any human being or I look elsewhere, I ask Allah first. And whenever you ask Allah Jalla fi'ula sincerely, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will never disappoint you. The Prophet ﷺ tells in hadith, there are 3 categories of people that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala promises to help them, to aid them, to assist them. Amongst them is the one who is trying to get married to protect themselves from haram. Allah promises to help that person to get married. If you're sincere. If you're sincere in looking for marriage, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows your heart, how sincere you are, and how serious you are, you raise your hands to Allah Azza wa Jalla and you ask Allah for His aid and assistance to grant to that person. That's the first thing. And the way you ask Allah Azza wa Jalla matters. Some people, they say, I made dua, but I'm still single, brother. What are you on about? The way you ask Allah makes a difference. What do I mean by the way you ask Allah? It means that dua has a certain way that you ask Allah Jalla fi'ula. The Prophet ﷺ taught us how to format our du'as. He told us that when you're asking Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, to start by praising Allah Azza wa Jalla, because that will make your dua more accepted. And then after you praise Allah Azza wa Jalla, you send salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ. And then after that, seek forgiveness from Allah, because all calamities that happen to you are due to your sins. Seek forgiveness from Allah from the sins that you committed. And then ask Allah for what you wish. Ya Allah, grant me a beautiful, righteous spouse. And then you ended by sending salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ. That format makes your dua more accepted in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jalla. But then the Prophet ﷺ told us other things, other factors that matter. He told us, number 1, that you ask Allah with certainty that you're going to get a response. He said, Udu'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Ask Allah whilst you're certain that you're going to get a response. Meaning that if you have a speck of doubt that you're going to get a response, you're not going to get a response. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla says to you, Udu'uni astajib lakum. Ask me, I shall respond to you. And then you say, I'm going to ask you, but I'm not sure that you're going to give me a response. That's disrespectful. How do you think you're going to get a response? When you have that mindset, you have to be certain, 100%, I've asked Allah, I'm going to get a response. The response that you get, it is not always the response that you asked for. You asked for something that you wanted, and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will grant you that which is better for you. That's given. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla knows that which is the best for you. So whenever you call upon Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Prophet ﷺ told us that you're going to get one of 3. Either Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will grant you what you asked for, or Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will protect you from harm that's coming your way due to your dua, or Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will delay it for a better time, and a time that you need it most. So every time you make dua, you're always winning, you're never losing. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that the moment you say, I've made dua, I haven't got a response, if you have that attitude, you won't get a response. He also told us ﷺ that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala does not accept the dua of a heart that's heedless and distracted. Meaning that when you're asking Allah, if you're just saying words but it's not coming from your heart, it's not genuine, you won't get a response. These things, they matter, they're part of how you ask Allah. It makes a huge difference to your dua. So that's how you ask Allah Azza wa Jal. Now look at this. The Quran, it has only one story of marriage in the Quran. The whole Quran, there's only one story of marriage. Whose story is that? Huh? Anyone? Anyone know this? Which story? Yes. The story of Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, his story is the only story that's mentioned in the Quran that talks about marriage. How did Musa alayhi salam get married? Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned it to us for us to take lessons from it. What did Musa alayhi salam do? What are the steps he took? All of that, it's giving you a blueprint on how to get married. Musa alayhi salam, he came to a different city. He's strange to the city, he doesn't know it. And then he found people who are by water, who are getting some water for their cattle, for their animals. And he saw two women who are far away from all the men who are collecting the water. So then Musa alayhi salam, he went to these two women. He said to them, "Ma khatbukuma? What can I help you with? What's the matter?" They said to him, "We can't go to that. We have our cattle, we're trying to get water for them, but we can't go over there until these men, they leave, and we go over there because they're shy." The nature of a woman is that she's modest and shy. She doesn't openly mix with the opposite gender. She's not close with the opposite gender. She keeps a distance. She's bashful and shy. Musa alayhi salam notices that, so he says, okay, he volunteers to help them. He goes and gathers the water for their cattle because their father is very old, he can't come do it for them. So now Musa alayhi salam, when he gathers the water for them, he carries it with them and helps them take it all the way home. How does he walk? He walks in front of them, the women walk behind him. Because he's showing respect to these women. He doesn't want to look at them. And what does he do? Allah says, فَسَقَى لَهُمَا ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ. After he gathered the water for them, then he went to the shade. And then what did he say? He took this step. قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٍ. He said, my Lord, I'm in dire need of the khair that descends that you sent down. I'm in dire need of it. All the goodness. He made that dua. After he made that dua, Allah says, فَجَاءَتْهُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ قالت إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا. Straight away, the fa in Arabic means ta'qib. Straight after he made the dua, instantly one of the girls came to him. One of the two girls, she came to him. Allah Azza wa Jalla describes how she came to him. It matters, the description. Allah says, فَجَاءَتْهُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. She was walking in a state of bashfulness, of modesty. Or عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ قَالَتْ. She said in a shy, modest manner. What did she say? Verily my father is calling you to reward you for the service you done for us, the water you gathered for us. Straight away, the response to dua came to him. What was the response to his dua? What happens? He comes to the father and he tells him about his story that he left Egypt and he came over here and he fled and so on. And then one of the girls, she says, قال يا أبت استأجر إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. She says, oh our father, employ him, give him a job. Verily, the best individual that you can employ is the one who is strong and trustworthy. She pointed out these two characteristics that Musa alayhi salam had. Strength, which is physical strength, emotional strength, spiritual strength. Physical strength, emotional strength, and spiritual strength. Al-Amin, trustworthy. Trustworthiness, what does it mean? That you are one who fulfills the rights of every single person, everyone, you fulfill their rights. That's what it means to be trustworthy. Ameen, amana, that you fulfill the rights of everyone, starting on the right of Allah and then the rights of the creation. He had these two qualities. She said, Ya Allah, oh our father, employ him. So what does this father say to Musa alayhi salam? He says to him, إِنِّي أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُنْكِحَكَ إِحْدَى ابْنَتَيَّ هَاتَيْنِ عَلَىٰ أَنْ تَأْجُرَنِي ثَمَانِيَ حِجَجٍ. He said, I want straight away, I want to marry you to one of my two daughters. With the condition that you work for me for 8 years. And if you complete it as 10 years, because that's the mahar, the dowry, that's from you, yani. That's a favor that you do from yourself. And I don't want to make it difficult for you. Musa alayhi salam, after he did that, And he made that dua to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. What happened? Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala granted him rizq, provision. Allah opened the door of provision for him and he granted him marriage. Just by making that dua. The element of dua is essential, ayyuhal kiram. Making dua is so important. This dua is a dua that you should memorize, especially you, those who are not married. It will help you get married, inshallah. Allah will bring that khair to you instantly. If you are one who perhaps thinks that I can't get married right now because I don't have the finances to get married, by making this dua, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will facilitate that for you so that you can get married. Like He did for Musa alayhi salam. But this story teaches us something. It teaches the qualities that you look out for a wife and the quality that you look out for in a husband. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala reiterated twice the quality of bashfulness and modesty and shyness that these women had. Because modesty and bashfulness, it indicates God consciousness. It indicates fear of Allah. Because haya, the Prophet ﷺ told us how important it is when it comes to our faith. He said that al-haya ad-deenu kullu. He said the whole religion, it is haya, modesty and bashfulness. Meaning the more modesty and bashfulness you have, the better your religiosity is, the better your Islam is, the better your Iman is. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that al-haya'u shu'batun min iman. He told us that haya, it is a part of Iman. He told us ﷺ, inna li kulli deenin khuluqa, that every single religion has a characteristic that is known for. And the characteristic of our faith, Islam, it is al-haya. That's universal for men and women alike. But women, they have this natural haya that Allah Azza wa Jalla created them with, which is more than a man, which gives them an advantage over us. Because a man, sometimes he has to work hard to increase his modesty and to become more bashful. Whereas a woman, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gives her that advantage. It's natural. Allah created her with it. So when she increases that bashfulness, she becomes a better mu'mina, a better believer. That's what a man looks out for. A man does not look for, he doesn't want a woman who mixes with men, who talks to every man on the street. No man wants that. A man does not want a woman who dresses in a way that's not modest, which goes against the guidelines of Allah. A man does not want a woman who walks in a way and attracts attention from other men. No man wants a woman like that. That's a reality. Am I right? Am I right? Because a man is meant to be jealous. He's created with ghirah. That he has jealousy, protective jealousy over his womenfolk. And that's part of Iman. That the man, he has that protective jealousy that he does not want another man to be casually conversating with his wife and sitting with his wife and just having fun with his wife. No man wants that. He has that protective jealousy. Imagine the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about the ruling of adultery, if someone was caught committing adultery, that you have to bring 4 witnesses. Right? He mentioned that. One of the Sahaba, his name was Sa'ad ibn Ubadah, radiyallahu anhu. He said, Ya Rasulullah, if I see another man with my wife, I'm not going to go and get 4 witnesses. I'm going to cut off his head right there. Kill him. Because of his ghirah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said to the Sahaba, أَتَعْجَبُونَ مِنْ غِيرَةِ سَعَدٍ? Are you amazed by the protective jealousy of Sa'ad? They said yes. The Prophet ﷺ responded by saying that, Wallahi, I have more protective jealousy than Sa'ad, and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has more ghirah than me. Because Allah legislated it. What does that mean? It means that your ghirah has to be within the limits of the Sharia. You can't exceed the limits of the deen. The limits, the boundaries that Allah Azza wa Jalla has put in place, that's where you stop. You don't go further than that. Some places they go extreme in their ghirah, which causes the man to go insane sometimes. And then he starts being paranoid and questioning everything about his wife. That's not how you can live in a marriage. His wife will look to the side, you're looking at that man. Why are you looking at that man? What's wrong with you? Sheikh, that's junoon, that's insanity. Right? It has to be within the limits of Sharia. Yani. Be a normal person. Don't be crazy and creepy and freaky. That's what Allah mentions in a woman. But then look what Allah mentions in the description of the man. What a woman should be looking for in a man. These two descriptions that Musa alayhi salam was described with: strength. Strength is what a woman looks for in a man. A woman looks for security. She's looking for safety within a man. She's looking for a man who can take care of her. A man who is physically strong, spiritually strong, and mentally strong. He gives her that security that he has that qawwama. What is that qawwama? That qawwama is something that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given the men. You're anointed or appointed by Allah Azza wa Jalla with that qawwama. But what gives you that qawwama? One of the things that legitimizes your qawwama in the sight of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is that you provide a security for that woman. You provide for her. You provide a home for her that she's secure in. You give her wealth that she needs to take care of her. You provide her health care, everything she needs, you take care of her. That's the man's duty. When that role is taken away from a man, then there's no reason to have a man in a marriage. When that's taken away from a man, that marriage will not last. It will not work. Because a marriage is like a company. A company can't have two managers or two CEOs. Can it have that? It can't, right? Why? Because it become chaotic. They'll fight each other constantly. One is going to make a decision, another's going to make a decision. They're going to fight over the decision. Nothing's going to get done. The whole company will become corrupt and they will destroy the whole company. Right? A marriage is like that too. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala made one CEO of this marriage, and that's the man. And he's the one who is responsible for managing this marriage. It's a great responsibility. It comes with a lot of work. It's not easy. And it shouldn't be taken lightly. But Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala put it in place so that it can safeguard this marriage. Because if this marriage becomes destroyed and it falls apart, so much corruption will come out of that. And we've probably seen that. A lot of us are probably aware, because of how common family breakdowns are. We've seen the outcomes of that. What happens to the children, what it causes to society, and so on. All the mischief and the corruption, the evil that occurs due to there not being a strong family unit. Ayyuha al-kiram, we are living in a time where the family unit, it is under threat. The family unit, it is under threat by ideologies that are creeping into even the Muslims. They are adopting these ideologies that have nothing to do with Islam, and they are, as a result, destroying our family units. And you all know what I'm referring to. All these isms, all these different isms that exist, they have nothing to do with Islam. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He chose Islam for us as a way of life. You know what that means? That means Islam governs every aspect of my life. The moment I think that Islam does not govern certain aspects of my life and I look for answers elsewhere, that is when I have told myself that I do not want what Allah Azza wa Jal has chosen for me, the divine way of life, which is the perfect way of life. That's extremely dangerous. What it means to be a Muslim is that you are someone who submits to the will of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. When Allah commands you to do something, you do it instantly. When Allah prohibits something, you abstain from it instantly. That is what it means to be a Muslim. It's not about how I feel about it, what I think about it, because you are a servant of Allah. A slave is someone who their feelings or their emotions or their thoughts and their opinions are disregarded when it comes to their master. That's who I am as a Muslim. I submit. And when we submit to the will of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, things will work out for us. They will go well. Because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, what He has decreed is the best. But when we go against it and we follow our own whims and desires, that's when things are going to fall apart. And we are going to be extremely depressed. I have to say it, because it wouldn't be right if I didn't say it. What is very common today is that there's two extremes. There's an extreme when it comes to our sisters, and there's an extreme when it comes to our brothers. The extreme with the brothers, it is that they have been influenced by this red pill ideology that exists, which is not an Islamic concept. It has extreme principles that contradict Islam. And then they try to put an Islamic cover over it, which a lot of it is degrading or humiliating women or oppressing them. And then you have the other extreme, which is feminism, which has plagued the minds of our sisters. And they think that this is something that's going to give them their rights, when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has given them all the rights that they need. Allah Azza wa Jalla has not taken anything away from them. You know what doesn't make sense to me, which until today I cannot fathom. Imagine if I was told this, that I can stay home for the rest of my life, that I don't have to work a day in my life, that I get everything for free, and I can live a lavish lifestyle. If I was told that, and I was given another option to leave the home and to go out every day and to go work and to labor and struggle, which one would you choose? I would choose the first one. It doesn't make sense to me where our sisters are told by Allah, you get all this free lifestyle, live your best life. And they say, no, I want to work. I don't get it. I want to go to a 9 to 5 and struggle. Yes, I'm not saying that sometimes you may need to do that. Right? Certain circumstances may cause that. But if you are told initially that your husband is going to take care of everything, right? And you just get to stay home and enjoy your life. Wow, Shaykh, it's Jannah on earth. Why would you want anything else? But society has convinced our sisters that they will be less valued if they are a homemaker, if they are a mother. They have been told that chasing a career is what's going to make you one who contributes to society. La. The best career that a woman can chase, it's the natural career that Allah has chosen for her, motherhood. And it's the most rewarding. Let's say a woman chases a normal career, 10 years, 15 years, she's going up the ladder, she makes it to the top, she's now maybe 40 years old, 50 years old, perhaps unmarried with 100 cats, they're all depressed. None of them are happy. But if she was to get married, right, and she's an extremely educated woman, and she pursues the path of motherhood, which is her innate disposition that Allah created her with, that she has children, and she raises these children upon righteousness, and she raises them to be contributed to society in a positive manner. She has contributed to society in the best way that anyone could do. That is the greatest honor that any individual can get, that a man can never attain. You know, some of the greatest people who lived, they were created by a mother, a single mother. They were made by a single mother who raised them upon righteousness. Some of the names that you're very familiar with, behind them are great mothers who made them. And that's the legacy that they left behind. Huge legacy. Because our ummah, the future of our ummah is our sisters. Our sisters, they make the ummah. They are the backbone of the ummah. They are the backbone of society. You have Imam al-Bukhari, who has the most authentic book after the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yani every time his name is being mentioned, people are making dua for him. They read Sahih al-Bukhari. You know that his mother gets a share of every single reward he gets, because she's the one who took him to the place of knowledge. She traveled with him and took him to learn, etc. He was an orphan. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was an orphan. His mother's the one who raised him upon the righteousness and made him that Imam with the permission of Allah. Ash-Shafi'i, he was an orphan. Look at the legacy. We perhaps don't know the names of their mothers, but look what they left behind. They're in their graves and they're getting reward that no one knows except Allah. That's a huge legacy. If I accomplish just a bit of that, I would be extremely proud. That's how rewarding motherhood is. That's the greatest contribution to society. And just like that, the man's role is to facilitate all that. His role is to make all that easier, so that that household flourishes. He provides a safe space, a home that can grow in. He provides the wealth that's required, the sustenance, so that they can develop. He requires all that which is necessary and needed in order for these goals to be attained. Al-Qawi Al-Amin. Now, these are the first steps to getting married. I mentioned dua. Now what is the next step that you take after dua? You have to actively be looking, right? But how do you actively start looking? There's a number of avenues that you can take. Some of these avenues I prefer, and I mention them. And there's certain avenues that I do not like. As for the first avenue, the first path that you can take in finding a spouse is the following. That this is the way that's always worked, by the way. It's worked for centuries. So if it's worked all those years, I believe it worked today as well, inshallah ta'ala. It is that you go through connections. If you are a man and you're looking for a wife, because that's how it normally is, you ask if you have female relatives. If you have females in your family who can help you look, give them a description of what you're looking for and let them look out for you, right? Because it's the man's role to look. He's the one who goes searching. A woman doesn't normally go searching because her nature is to be extremely shy. So you're the one who goes looking for a wife. So you go through these connections and so on that they find someone for you. Okay, once they find someone for you, of course you have the right to either accept or not, but the most important thing that you should be looking out for in these matches, it is deen and compatibility. By deen I mean what I mentioned earlier on. But compatibility is another factor that a lot of people, they don't give importance. What is compatibility? The Prophet ﷺ told us about that compatibility. He told us that compatibility, it is that, for instance, these two individuals, they come from a similar social status. It's important in marriage. Because if the woman you're about to marry, she comes from an extremely wealthy background, and she's used to a very lavish lifestyle, but you come from a very humble background, when you get married to her, you have to provide her the lifestyle that she's used to. But you can't afford it. Miskeen. Right? Compatibility is important. That's one element. Also part of compatibility which is mentioned, it is to marry from someone that you have a similar understanding with, you have a similar mindset. That there's things that you have in common so that you understand one another. It helps a marriage stay intact. And some of the ulama, they even add to that it makes it even better that you marry from the same culture, because it makes the compatibility better. Because one thing that is important that people do not know, especially young people, is that when you get married, you don't only get married to your spouse, you also get married to another package, which is the family. They come with a huge package. So when you get married to the same culture, it makes it easier for these two families to interact. Because families, sometimes they make a marriage or they break it as well. And if there's so many misunderstandings due to clashes of culture and so on, and not understanding each other's cultures and norms and customs, it can put a strain on the marriage. That's a reality, right? Also, part of compatibility, it is the element that everyone tends to prefer, which is that there's attraction. There's attraction. Attraction is important. A Sahabi came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm going to get married. He was excited. Prophet ﷺ said, MashaAllah, have you seen her? He said, no. He said, go see her. How you get married to someone you don't know what they look like? Right? Why? Because that will increase the affection between you. So that attraction is important. Why? Because marriage is meant to be something that protects you from haram. So when you get married, you get married to someone you are attracted to so that they protect you from looking elsewhere. That's important. Right? But you also have to be realistic. You're not going to get a perfect person who has all the description that you want. That you get in Jannah, inshallah. But in the dunya, you're not going to get someone who fulfills ticks every box. So that means you have to prioritize certain things and make other things less a priority. Put things that are important to you and the other things that you overlook. Being realistic is very important, because when you're not realistic, what happens, and this happens a lot with the brothers, that they tend to be unrealistic, and then they go through a sister, another sister, another sister, another sister, and a lot of the time the reason why he's rejecting her is because he keeps convincing himself, I'm not attracted enough, right? But then what happens? He ends up delaying marriage until he gets a lot older, and then nobody wants him because he's lost his hair. Don't let it get to that. Okay. That's important, compatibility. There's another thing that's, what is the way to approach it now? Let's say now you found someone who you think might be a match for you. The best way that I recommend that you approach the situation, it is that you send someone on your behalf to propose the idea of marriage to that individual. Because it will save you the embarrassment of rejection. Some sisters can be ruthless. They'll tell you to your face, brother, ugh. And that can leave a scar for life. Some brothers will be insecure for the rest of their life because of that. He's never going to forget that sister who said to me, La ilaha illallah. So when you send someone on your behalf, it makes the whole process easier. You don't have to face the rejection to your face. And that's what our mother Khadija radiallahu anha, she did. She sent her friend Nafisa to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam to propose the idea of marriage. Not to get married to Khadija. Nafisa came to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam because you have to do it in a smart manner. Don't embarrass your friend so that they don't have to face that rejection as well. Right? So don't say, my friend so-and-so is interested in you, what do you think? Don't do that. Say, what do you think of marriage? Are you looking to get married? And then if they say to you, yes, and then make it seem like, oh, okay, I think I have someone for you. Nafisa, she said to the Prophet ﷺ, what do you think about getting married? The Prophet ﷺ said, okay, I don't mind. And then she said, okay, what do you think of Khadija? And the Prophet ﷺ said, that sounds great, right? And then what does Nafisa say? She says, okay, let me go find out if she's okay with it. She doesn't make it seem like Khadija sent her. Because normally women are shy. And women don't want to come across as they are the ones asking. And a woman can do that as well. There's no shame in a woman, if she sees a certain brother that she's interested for marriage, to send someone to propose the idea of marriage to them. In that manner, without embarrassing the sister. Right? There's no shame in that. So that's what you can do to save yourself the embarrassment. Send a person. But I warn against this. Don't go up to a sister in the market that you see and say to her, sister, give me your father's number, I'm interested in you. Don't do that. You'll freak her out or creep her. Right? She'll think, what a creep. What a weirdo. So don't do that. Okay, once I've done that I've sent perhaps a friend, or I've sent my family, my mother or my sister or someone to go address the sister for the idea of marriage. If she's agreed, then now you can take it to the next step. But there's something that precedes that. How do you know that this person is someone that you want to approach? Because nowadays, once you take that step and you send someone to propose the idea of marriage to someone, it means that you've already kind of made your mind up before you take that step. So that means that prior to taking that step, you need to do your homework on that person. You need to know about them, gather information regarding them, what they're like, what their character is like, what sort of family they come from, etc. These sort of things that are important, that you know them before you actually propose the idea of marriage to them. Because when you propose the idea of marriage to them, most of the cultures today, it's hard to take that back. It's hard to take it back once you get to that stage. It becomes quite formal. So it's better you do all that information and gathering the intelligence beforehand. Okay, now there's a question that is a big question that a lot of people ask. How do I get to know that person? You don't. There's no such thing as getting to know someone before you get married. It doesn't happen, because I'll tell you the truth, and this is the plain truth. You will never know this person truly until you're married to them. You won't know their reality until you actually live with them. So, marriage is a risk. It generally is a risk. But you go off the important things that you know about them, which everyone has agreed upon that they know about this individual. And then secondly, when you actually interact with a person, you speak to them, the things that you speak to them about is not who they are as a person. You don't ask them about themselves, because a lot of the time, what are they going to do? They're going to make themselves look the best. No one's going to say to you, I'm bad at this, I'm bad at this. No one's going to say that to you. They're going to tell you all everything that as if they're perfect. It's going to be a facade. So what are the questions that you should be asking? The questions that you should be asking are questions that show whether you're compatible or not. Things to do with your marriage and your future. For instance, if you are someone who, when they get married, you want to reside in a different country, you want to move abroad, ask her if she wants to move abroad. Because if she says, I have to stay here with my family, my parents, I don't want to go anywhere, knowing that answer will help you make your mind up. If it's important to you to know whether your wife is going to work after marriage or not, ask that question. These sorts of questions that are going to affect your marriage, it's important to ask these before you get married to understand how compatible you are to one another. Having children, etc. These sorts of things are very important, because once you get into the marriage and you haven't spoken about these matters, that's what causes a lot of problems in a marriage. Because you never spoke about it prior to getting married. So you start fighting about it and you start to resent one another. It's important to ask these questions. Okay, once you've done that, you've seen her, you're content with the way she is, her deen, her character, you feel like you're compatible, etc. Right? And she's also content with the man, and she's okay, she's happy with who he is. After all that, then you take the next step, and the next step is that you don't delay this step, which is that you formally propose. How does that normally happen? Most cultures have their way of going about it, and Islam does not cancel culture as long as it doesn't go against Islam. It doesn't cancel it, right? If the culture has a certain way of going about it, you can follow that as long as it does not go against the teachings of Allah Ta'ala, right? But normally what has to happen is that your father and the groom and the father, they would go together to the house of the sister, her family, and they would perhaps even take some other uncles or senior members of the family with them, and they would formally ask for their daughter's hand in marriage. And that is called the khitbah. It's called the engagement. And that is basically a promise to get married to this individual. Once that happens, what does it necessitate? It necessitates that now this sister cannot be talking to anyone else for marriage. Nobody else can propose to her because she's engaged to someone else. They're not married, meaning that they don't have the relationship that the husband and wife have. They still have to keep a distance. They can't be alone with one another. They can't be going out together to places and going to restaurants as if they're a married couple. La. You're still two strangers to one another, but there's that promise to get married to each other. And then the next step is to do the actual act, the contract, and to formalize that marriage. These are the steps that you take. But then, ayyuha al-kiram, when it comes to actually getting into the marriage itself, the household, and when you are married, there are certain pillars that help a marriage stay intact. And I believe it's very important that we all know these things. The first pillar of a marriage staying intact, it is that this household, the husband and wife, they do spiritual acts together. They do ibadah together. Whether it is that they pray salah together, they give charity together, they seek knowledge together, they recite the Quran together, they do an act of worship together. It helps the marriage stay intact so much. It keeps shaitan out of your house. It brings barakah to your home. It's so important. Because the closer these two individuals are to Allah, the closer they'll be to one another. It's like a triangle. Allah is at the top. The closer they get to Allah, they'll get closer to one another. That's how it is. That's essential. How many homes have I seen that have broken or they are struggling? And then if you ask a simple question as, the husband, do you pray? Sometimes you answer no. The wife, do you pray? No. Then how do you expect your household to be a household of harmony when you have neglected the right of Allah Ta'ala? Harmony is something that Allah brings down. It comes from Allah. So you seek it from Allah by pleasing Allah. When you please Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala will grant you that harmony, that peace, and that tranquility, and that love and affection. It will increase it between you and that mercy. It's from Allah. That's essential. I can't stress it enough. I was going to tell a story, but I realized our sisters are here and they might not like it, so I'll move on. Or shall I tell it? Shall I tell you the story? It's quite interesting, but the sisters are not going to like it. She'll go ahead. We'll go ahead. There's a sheikh that I know. He, mashallah, he has more than one wife. This is the part the sisters they don't like. He has 4 wives. But all of his wives, they are حافظات لكتاب الله. They have memorized the Quran. They have memorized the Quran. So he has a mechanism to keep his households intact. How does he do it? Whenever one of his wives gets jealous, or there's a disagreement that happens, or there's a problem that arises, he says, the Somalis, we have a way of revising Quran, it's called sub'a. He says, let's sit down and sub'ino. We're going to have sub'a. We're going to read Quran, let's revise Quran together first. The moment he says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, shaitan gone. She starts reciting the Quran, Sakina comes down. Problem is forgotten with the Quran. Because they are people of the Quran, when you say to them, let's recite Quran, nobody will say to you, no. You say to them, no to Quran. How can you say no to Quran? Let's read Quran and we talk about this after. The moment they read Quran, everything is solved. That's how he said, with the Quran, he said, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has helped me with my family. Because of ibadah, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala help you. طيب, lastly, أيها الكرام, another pillar of the marriage is succeeding, and this is the essential, it is that everyone fulfills their duties, their responsibilities, and they give each other their rights, the 2 spouses. That you know what your duties are, your responsibilities, you fulfill it. And you know what your spouse's rights are, you fulfill it. You give each other their rights. Because a lot of marriages, the reason why they break down is because people don't know their rights, they don't know their responsibilities, they step on each other's toes, and then they cause havoc in a marriage. What are the rights of a man and what are the rights of the woman in a marriage? The rights of the man, it is that his wife, she is one who obeys him in that marriage, in ma'roof, in that which Allah Azza wa Jalla legislated. She only obeys him in goodness. She is one who only lets people into his house that he's pleased with. She is one who behaves with him in the best character and utmost respect. And she takes care of his home and his children. That's the rights of the man upon his wife. And the rights of the wife upon the husband is that he provides for her, he gives her the qawwama, he provides for her a home for her, he provides for her financially, he takes care of her affairs, he gives her the attention and the rights that she needs. He is one who has good character, addresses her in the best manner. He is merciful towards her, he is kind and gentle with her. He is one who does not harm her in any way, whether it's psychologically or physically. And he is one who helps her in fulfilling her duty and does not make it difficult for her to fulfill her duties. And then there's rights that are shared between both, which is that they respect one another. They consult each other when it comes to the affairs of their household and their children. They consult each other. It's important to consult each other. The Prophet ﷺ consulted his wives when it came to the future of their household and their family and what they're going to do. Consult each other. Don't just make a decision by yourself as a man and completely leave her out of the loop. Consult each other. And to be those who give each other their rights generally, especially in terms of ushrah. And lastly, it is that they are those who both fear Allah when it comes to one another. They fear Allah when it comes to one another. You don't transgress against the rights of each other. And you keep the secrets of your wife, and your wife keeps the secrets of her husband. You don't expose the secrets of your spouse to anyone, not even your family. And you keep each other's families from each other or from one another so that it doesn't cause friction between each other, meaning that you don't say anything bad about your family in front of your husband, and your husband doesn't say anything bad about his family in front of you, and the opposite as well. So it doesn't cause any friction between the individuals. These are rights. When the rights are preserved, and there's that good consciousness and that ibadah in the home, Allah Azza wa Jal preserve that marriage, inshaAllah ta'ala. I ask Allah Tabarak wa ta'ala to benefit us with what we've heard. And I ask Allah Tabarak wa ta'ala to make us from those who hear the speech and follow the best of it. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant all those who are not married righteous spouses. Say Ameen. You don't want marriage? Why did you come then? And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make our marriages ones that extend from this world to the hereafter. And I ask Allah Tabarak wa ta'ala, just like He gathered us all here this evening, that He gathers us in Jannah al-Firdaus al-A'la without any previous punishment or any difficult account with our parents and our loved ones and all those who have rights upon us. Innahu Jawadun Kareem. Lastly, Ayyuhal Kiram, you heard at the beginning about the Global Quran Project. The Global Quran Project is a project that's very dear to my heart, because anything that's associated with the Quran has barakah. And the Global Quran Project, what makes it extremely dear to my heart, it is because it's going to revolutionize how people interact with the Quran. They have two projects. They have a project which is to provide mushafs, Qurans that have been projected in Saudi Arabia, which is the Madani mushaf with the color-coded tajweed rules, which does not exist anywhere else, is unique. And what they're doing, you can make that as a waqf for yourself, an ongoing charity. You gift it to people who do not have it. Places in Africa and places in other parts of the world, they don't have the luxury of having Quran they can read Quran from and learn from, etc. They have little scrolls or woods and planks that they write Quran on. They don't have the luxury of the Quran. Imagine when you provide that Quran as an ongoing charity, that would be endless reward until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's one element. The second part of the project, it is that they're trying to provide a Quran that has all the functions of the Quran. Meaning that it has the text in Arabic where you recite it correctly with tajweed, with the color-coded tajweed. It also has the meaning of the ayat on the page. It also has, and it's a thematic translation of the Quran. And it also has the action points. Each page of the Quran, what it is telling you to do, so you know how to act upon the Quran. And then on top of that, they are recording the whole Quran in video and audio. And you'll have a QR code in every page of the Mus'haf. You can scan it with your phone and you can listen to that page being explained to you and be recited for you as well. So that our interaction with the Quran becomes a better one, stronger, that we have a stronger connection with the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and we take the Quran as a guide in our life. So you can support this project by scanning the QR code that you have on here, and I think some of the brothers, they have it, inshallah ta'ala. You can scan it and you can gift Quran on behalf of yourself, on behalf of your parents, and it'll be going ongoing charity sadaqah jari, inshallah ta'ala, until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And you can support the project to make this mushaf, inshallah ta'ala, that will revolutionize the interaction that we have with the Quran. May Allah Azza bless you all and grant us all goodness. Wa jazakumullah khair. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. MashaAllah, you went through all the stages from